his intention to weaponize the Department of Justice against his political enemies, and then you just look at what the people who know him best and worked with him in the Oval Office and the White House have said about him, which is he is unfit to serve and would be dangerous if he were president again. And he, even by the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff.
During Donald Trump's decade in politics, there have been countless leaked reports, bombshell stories, and devastating admissions, but potentially none more damaging than what is being reported today in The Atlantic. So devastating, in fact, that it has the potential to end Donald Trump's campaign, especially in wake of the comments that were made by the former chairman of Donald Trump's Joint Chiefs of Staff, Mark Milley, who called Donald Trump in a book by Bob Woodward a fascist to his core. And of course, we have talked extensively on this show about how many of Donald Trump's former officials, especially those in national security, have pointed out how dangerous Donald Trump is, not to just us domestically, but of course around the globe. We can bring up the phone calls that Donald Trump has made to Vladimir Putin since leaving the White House. We can talk about the ways in which Donald Trump wanted to attack protesters during his time in office, threatening to shoot them in the leg if he wasn't stopped by Mark Milley. We know these things to be true about Donald Trump, but this breaking news story in The Atlantic reveals more about the way that he wanted to use and abuse the military, and it should terrify us all. And we are going to get into this breaking story, but before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you enjoy the reporting that happens every single day on this channel, to hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way, and it really means a lot to me now. Like I said, there is a lot that is making the story as damaging as it is. So before we get into it, context, I think we need to hear a little bit from Vice President Harris.
His intention to weaponize the Department of Justice against his political enemies, and then you just look at what the people who know him best and worked with him in the Oval Office and the White House have said about him, which is he is unfit to serve and would be dangerous if he were president again. And he, even by the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, has been called a fascist to his core, I am quoting. So what we are talking with folks about today is what I've been talking with folks about since I've been on the campaign trail these last 70-odd days, which is this is a choice for the American people. And it is a choice between whether we're going to chart a new way forward that turns the page on the division, the hate, the chaos of Donald Trump, but also, and maybe even more fundamentally, do we have a President of the United States who stands behind the seal of the President of the United States, taking seriously their oath and their duty to uphold the Constitution of the United States and abide by the rule of law?
This story has become so important in the closing days of this campaign, and that is why I am so glad VP Harris is talking about it. I wish that we would hear more from General Milley, because we saw in a speech that he made last year stressing the importance against fighting back against Donald Trump, not saying his name directly, but he did, of course, call out those wannabe dictators, those wannabe authoritarians, and we need to continue to push back against that. And of course, the story and scoop that he gave to Bob Woodward talking about his experience with Trump was a way in which he was calling him out. But we need to see more of that, not only because of Donald Trump's attacks on our military, the way he's tried to abuse it, the way he viewed his own generals and he viewed his own soldiers as the commander-in-chief. Now, the story will get into some of that in the most devastating way. But before we talk about it, I think we need a little bit more context right here.
This is Kelly, confirming on the record stories of Trump insulting Senator John McCain and former President George H.W. Bush, because in Vietnam and in World War II, respectively, the former aviators were shot down. Kelly describes Trump as, quote, a person that thinks those who defend their country in uniform, or are shot down, or seriously wounded in combat, or spend years being tortured as POWs, are all, quote, suckers, because, quote, there is nothing in it for them. A person that did not want to be seen in the presence of military amputees because, quote, it doesn't look good for me. A person that demonstrated open contempt for a Gold Star family, for all Gold Star families, on TV, during the 2016 campaign.
Donald Trump has consistently looked down upon the men and women who serve in our military, and as commander-in-chief, he tried to abuse his power and try to use the military to enforce his own grievance and to attack his political opponents. And that is what is so scary with all of that in mind about this leak and this report from The Atlantic that I want to take a look at right here. John Kelly goes on the record to confirm Trump once told him he wished he acted like one of Hitler's generals. John Kelly, Donald Trump's former White House chief of staff, went on record with The Atlantic editor Jeffrey Goldberg and confirmed that Trump once told him he wished he acted like German generals, which he later clarified meant specifically Hitler's generals. Goldberg explained that the comments were first reported by Peter Baker and Susan Glazer in their book, The Divider Trump in the White House. In the book, the reporting couple writes that while in the office, Trump asked Kelly, "Why can't you be like German generals?" Trump at various points had grown frustrated with military officials he deemed disloyal and disobedient throughout the course of his presidency. Trump referred to flag officers as "my generals," according to Baker and Glasser. Kelly explained to Trump that German generals tried to kill Hitler 3 times and almost pulled it off. This correction did not move Trump to reconsider his view. No. They were totally loyal to him. The president responded. Goldberg then went on to recall his own recent conversation with Kelly, the former 4-star Marine Corps general, who also recounted Trump calling U.S. soldiers losers and suckers for being killed and buried in military sea cemeteries in Europe. Goldberg wrote this week, "I asked Kelly about their exchange. He told me that when Trump raised the subject of German generals, Kelly responded by asking, 'Do you mean Bismarck generals?' He went on, 'I knew he didn't know who Bismarck was or about the Franco-Prussian War.' I said, 'Do you mean the Kaiser's generals?' 'Surely you can't mean Hitler's generals.' And he said, yeah. With Hitler's generals, I explained to him that Rommel had to commit suicide after taking part in a plot against Hitler. Kelly told me Trump was not acquainted with Rommel. He said, 'Well, Hitler did some good things.' Kelly said of Trump, I said, 'Well, what?' And he said, 'Well, rebuilt the economy.' But what did he do to rebuild the economy? He turned it against his own people and against the world. I said, 'Sir, you can never say anything good about the guy.'" Nothing Kelly recalled telling Trump. Of course, this isn't the first time that we have seen Donald Trump sympathize with or quote Hitler directly, but to hear it in this report, to hear it from John Kelly, who has previously spoken out about the way that Donald Trump degraded our men and women in uniform with his disgusting rhetoric, it is all the more cementing how Donald Trump views and wants to use our military, and it also just shows what a complete lack of understanding of history that Donald Trump has. And this is the stable genius, really. This is who he thinks he is, and it's the reason why we need more national security officials to speak out, why we need more of this damning evidence of who Donald Trump is, which was called out by Tim Walz right here.
These people.
Yeah, don't listen to us on this. Listen to people who are closest to him. Mark Milley, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, said most dangerous man America's ever faced. His chief of staff, John Kelly, a 4-star general, said he's the most flawed human being. I did serve for 24 years, and I'm proud that you get called up for state duty during flooding and hurricanes. And as governor, you use the National Guard for domestic missions, called Title 32 missions, or federal missions, Title 10, when they fall under the president. But we have something in this country, starting out with posse comitatus in the Insurrection Act, that doesn't allow for the use of troops against U.S. citizens. It's pretty foundational to our democracy that the person who's in charge can't use the military to suppress their political rivals. But I will say this, there was an attempt to weaken the Insurrection Act after Hurricane Katrina, and myself and Congressman Davis from Virginia worked to make sure we restored those protections. These are constitutional guardrails, and I think what we saw with Senator Vance's answer about the 2020 election is the guardrails are off with Donald Trump right now, and I think we know that. And I think for the Americans to recognize, well, we got through one Trump president, so we can get through another. Look, I'm an eternal optimist. I supervised the lunchroom for quite a few years, so I'm very optimistic. You're either optimistic or dead in the lunchroom. I'm an optimist, but our systems are strained, and the ability to politicize the military has never been tried in this country. He's trying it. So I think it's a legitimate one. And I just tell Americans, if you're tired of that chaos, and I know that Donald Trump's handlers are saying he's exhausted. So are we. Americans are exhausted with the stuff that he does, the chaos.
This is an incredibly dangerous individual, and as we always say, when Donald Trump says something politically damaging, it's the only time he's speaking the truth and he means what he says. He does believe that his generals should be loyal to him. The exact same thing that General Milley called him out for, saying that they don't take an oath to a wannabe dictator, a wannabe authoritarian, to be king. But that is clearly how Donald Trump sees himself. And after the Supreme Court said he can be a dictator if he wants, and after Trump is said he wants to be a dictator, on day one, what other outcome could we possibly expect? And we can't treat this like it's anything else with the truth. Donald Trump wants to be an authoritarian. And not only does he want to be an authoritarian, he would be a bumbling, incoherent authoritarian, which almost makes him even more dangerous. And that losing it in Donald Trump's brain, that cognitive decline, is something that President Obama called him out for right here.
The other day he had a town hall meeting. Now, I've done my share of town hall meetings. My experience is the goal of the town hall meeting is you meet with your constituents, with citizens, with voters, you answer their questions. He decided, no, I'm not going to answer questions anymore. Let's just play music for half an hour. So he's standing there and he's swaying Ave Maria and YMCA. And, you know, the governor from South Dakota, she's standing there with this weird look on her face, like she doesn't really know what's going on. She's like, it's like a hostage video. Can you?
Donald Trump doesn't just want to be all-powerful as he continues to lose it. He wants to empower those around him who are almost as dangerous, potentially more dangerous, to attack our government that should scare us. And that is what we have to continue to call out, and we are going to every single day on this show. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button. You leave a like on this video, and if you stuck around at the end, you can drop a blue heart in the comments. Until next time, I'll see you soon.